Folks, that is not a drill. Oxford United beat a side around them in the Championship, beating West Bromwich Albion by 2-1. A very important result for Oxford's survival hopes after, of course, a very unfortunate 2-1 loss to Stoke City midweek. As you can tell, we're feeling very yellow here on Walking the London Road. Welcome back, Will, and to Connor, of course. Gentlemen, obviously, we'll get into the particulars of each game in a minute, but Connor, we mentioned how ideally and almost necessarily this had to be an unbeaten week. It wasn't quite that, but still a massive, massive 3 points.
If 3 points were going to come anywhere this week, it would have been against West Brom, and every Oxford fan would have said 3 points against West Brom, whether we lost or got any points against Stoke or not, was the absolute minimum, and that's what we did, and the boys came through.
Well, I know I certainly had a lot of concern. I was quite anxious going into that West Brom game, off the back of the Stoke game a little bit, but more that we know our form against the sides around us in the division is shocking. So much needed 3 points and a kind of morale boost. Also on a weekend where I think we're the only one of the bottom 7 that didn't lose.
Yeah, I think it's amazing how like the emotions of Oxford fans sort of change over this week. When we lost to Stoke City, everybody online, I think everybody who went to the football games, every group chat was like, we're going down, that's it, it's over, we might as well, let's accept it, let's resign ourselves to the fact we're going to be in League One next season. And now we're being West Brom and suddenly there's hope again. And if we just get one more win, there's a chance. And so I think that shows just how important a result it was. Like you said, for morale, but also just for our position in the table. We were done a massive favour by the results around us. But I think also for the first time, I think this season, we actually also helped ourselves by being a team that actually around us in the table. So I think it's massively important for us.
Yeah. It's amazing what fans' mental health can look like for the week when the football club does their job, doesn't it? So let's start with the negative side of the week, that 2-1 loss to Stoke City. We're not going to touch too long on this because it's another game where we were thoroughly outplayed, I thought. And even our consolation goal, as it ended up being, is offside. So there's not a lot we can really take from this other than second goal is too easy. Raksaki shouldn't be having that much space against Jack Curry. But given the result on Saturday, kind of pick yourself up, dust yourself off and look to go again. A much more important game, like you said, Connor, was the preference was always to beat West Brom and then see if we got anything against Stoke, given that we're actually competing with West Brom in the division.
Yeah, even the first goal against Stoke, Sam, I thought was pretty pathetic. Conceding from your own throw-in and then having men that high and allowing Stoke to go through 1-1 almost. But yeah, I think that we'd have all come away from Stoke if we'd have got a point. I think that a lot of us would have said, yeah, we'll be happy with that. Or we would have been satisfied rather than be happy with it. But that just put all the pressure onto our result at the weekend, onto the game at the weekend. And, when it comes down to it, the boys stood up and they really stood up when they knew that the pressure was on and knew that probably if they didn't win that game, then it might very well have been hammer, nail and coffin on the season.
So, Will, it's hilarious how you look at what happened at Stoke and almost all the questions that were asked and a lot of things we saw were kind of corrected on Saturday afternoon against West Brom. There's a huge chance that somehow doesn't end up in the back of the net from Will Lankshear off a corner kick. And it felt like after that, to me, if we were to score against West Brom, it was almost certainly going to be Will Lankshear. Obviously, there's also the caveat of that's where he spent last season on loan, but he wasn't going to pass up that kind of opportunity again.
No, I think, first of all, on the Stoke game, I don't have anything else to say other than what a goal by Kieran Brown, regardless whether it was offside or not. It's amazing. I feel like he secretly wishes he was a striker, just like, that's what I have to say.
Yeah, that and the Blackburn goal.
Yeah, that and the Blackburn goal. And yeah, I'm sorry, Sam, I've forgotten your question. What was your question again?
Just about how kind of what we saw against Stoke almost got corrected by the performance against West Brom.
Yeah, I think we were. Also, I think defensively we were a lot more compact than we were against Stoke. But I don't know whether we can kill ourselves and say we massively improved, or whether we were just facing a much worse opposition in West Brom.
Yeah.
You have to remember West Brom are managerless at the moment, and I think they've been through 2 managers this season. I think I'm right in saying. So they when they were coming forward, they were pretty hopeless and they didn't really seem to know what they were doing. So we can either look at that and say, well, we made a load of mistakes against Stoke and we corrected them against West Brom, or we can just say that we actually faced a much poorer opposition in West Brom than we did against Stoke. But either way, mistakes were made against Stoke and they weren't made against West Brom, so it is an improvement at the end of the day.
In the lead up to the game, Connor, obviously your personal campaign to see Eric Ramsey dismissed as West Brom manager came true after their draw with Charlton. Jokes aside, he was under pressure for a long time. I don't think he won a game as a West Brom manager, did he?
No, whoa, hold on. Personal campaign against to get him sacked. I wanted him sacked after Saturday, because we all knew the record that this club had this season with managers who had been sacked, and then we play that team the next game. Usually, never win. So this was a nice nice change. But it looked like that it didn't even make any difference at all, because I thought that it was a pretty below par game. But I thought that West Brom were absolutely woeful. So you can see what the legacy is about a club who's made awful decisions above the dugout, and then the decisions that are made inside the dugout, and what a lasting effect that can have on the season. Because we're 23rd in the league at the moment, outside of Sheffield Wednesday, probably one of, if not the worst team. And then if you get done over like that, it's pretty embarrassing to be beaten by teams like Oxford.
I'm sure if you tune into our friends over at Pastures Green, they'll be spitting nails at that performance, because there were very loud chants on the West Brom end of "you're not fit to wear the shirt" and all that kind of stuff. So. I'm sure West Brom fans are very well aware of everything that's going on, and they're under no illusion about the situation they are in. But let's talk about our side of things. Now, there was some criticism on Matt Bloomfield for his his team selection, more so the way we were set up. Like you mentioned, the very, very high line for set pieces, like why Jack Curry was the only man back against. We saw against West Brom as well, but Curry got caught out because there were 3-on-1 at that point. So there was a lot that needs to be made up for by Matt Bloomfield, and he did so by deploying the following lineup. Jamie Cumming started in goal. Sam Long at right back. Mikhail Helik and Kieran Brown restored as centre halves, with Jack Curry at left back. Asterisk to that, we'll speak about that momentarily. As we were kind of chatting about in the group during the week, whether Matt Bloomfield would deploy a of Cameron Brannigan and Yunus Konak, or Will Volks. Konak came back in for just his second start in an Oxford United shirt. And then, of course, it was Stan Mills, Miles Burt-Harris, Jamie Donnelly and Will Lankshear. The asterisk to the defensive side of things is that reported Matt Bloomfield said after the game that Makoto was planned to be in the lineup, but he arrived a couple of minutes late, and it was a disciplinary decision made. That was a new one on me. Well, I'd never heard of that situation happening. I just assumed that because a lot of these lineups are decided the night before the game, so it was a bit of an odd situation.
Yeah, a little bit. I know that he was obviously the preferred person to start Makoto, so I just thought he must have picked up a knock in the warm up or something. But for it to be a disciplinary, I think first of all, there were a few when we signed him, or at least now that this has all come out, there've been a few Luton fans who have come and said, "This, don't be surprised by this." There were a few things. There are a few disciplinary issues around Makoto going about, so it's a bit of a shame to see that might be coming into fruition. But I would also say fair play to Matt Bloomfield for having the balls to, even in a really important game like this, say, no, listen, I'm not going to accept that, so you're not going to start. And then having the balls to come out about it in public. I think the fact that he's talked about it publicly shows that I think he expects Makosa to be mature enough to sort of take this the right way and not sort of go into sort of like a sort of, you know, just go into a corner about it and just like, I can't think of the word, sorry. But yeah, I think it was a bit of an odd situation. I think when we were all seeing the lineup, that was the biggest hole we were seeing. We're like, where's Makosa and why is Helik in there? But he put in a decent enough performance. But I think if that's the explanation, that's the explanation. I think fair play to Matt Bloomfield for not having the balls to not put up with it in such a big game and just sort of trying to stamp it out early rather than just sort of letting it slide.
Connor, this is something that, you know, we talked about it last week, that although we're, you know, 2 months into Bloomfield's reign at this football club, to make the obvious joke, he's not afraid to take the ox by the horns. We saw it with Adomo Amaku with his work rate against Middlesbrough, and then against Stoke it was a marked improvement from Amaku. He's done it with Chris Makoso. He's not a manager that is afraid to, you know, use these as teachable moments for players, especially these young players who he expects to take them as lessons and become, you know, responsible players and, you know, good representatives for our football club.
Yeah, he's also trying to build a culture, isn't he? And then with culture comes with discipline and timekeeping. I mean, I'd say all this is that a bloke was late for work, so he's been reprimanded. Like if we were late 2 minutes late for work, we get docked 15 minutes pay. So, you know, that's all that I look into it. Like, you're late for work, you get punished, don't do it again. So, you know, and then if it becomes a more increasing habit and increasing theme, Makosa will have to watch himself, because he could end up finding himself that he's not in the squad at all.
I did think, depending how many minutes late, it might have just been a case he got stuck in traffic, which is like, if that was the case, it's very, very unfortunate that you got dropped for that. But we'll go to talk about some of the players that started in this lineup a little bit later. Another interesting addition was Hidir Vest. It appears that 25th spot on the register has been filled by the Dutch right back. It's unfortunate, really unfortunate for Greg Lee, because he's been a really good servant to this football club. But I think it's fair to say there seems to be a more injury issues at right back than left back for us so far this campaign, Will. So, you know, good that we kind of could make that decision of which looks the more pressing issue in the fullback areas.
Yeah, we've definitely got options. I think also when it comes to injuries, another big hole in the squad is Brian de Kersmacher, who I think after Stoke we're now no longer going to have for the rest of the season, which is a massive loss for us. Whether that's going to be his last game in an Oxford shirt or not, I guess time will tell. I think that's probably dependent on whether we stay up or not. But yeah, with regards to Greg Lee, it's a shame for him, because like I said, he's been a brilliant servant to the football club. Whether he's been able to step up to the Championship in every game that he's played at this level is another question, because there have been some times where he has been lacking. But I think purely for the service that he's given this football club, it is a bit unfair on him. But at the end of the day, we're in this position. So what can you do? We can't give him game time to be nice. We have to play the players that we need. So it's good that we've got options though. So
yeah, Greg's been in the sport long enough. He knows it's a ruthless profession, but it's just like unfortunate, because we see he's a very good character around the building and good connection with the fan base and all that kind of stuff. So I would hope that we haven't seen the last of Greg Lee, although I'm guessing that probably is the case, that we will, he might, depending on the situation, do a little lap of honour, because I think his contract's up at the end of the campaign, so it's, I think quite unlikely that Greg will stick around at the club. Let's talk about the game then, because it was a weird one, I think. West Brom started, I think, slightly better. They were looking dangerous in the wide areas. Mikey Johnson was, his pace up against Sam Long, I was a bit concerned, I won't lie, lads. But after we saw out that first kind of 10 minutes, they seemed to almost run out of steam. And surprise, surprise, sorry Arsenal, we are the official set piece FC. It was the set pieces that have that have worked best for us this season, and it happened again, Connor.
Yes, we are set piece FC. As you say, it was first of all, it was nice that we actually scored a goal at the Kassam for the first time in in 6 games, and then we scored 2 in the space of 25 minutes, and they're both from set pieces, which, as you say, surprise, but at this point, any goal will do. And nice that they were scored by 2 fan favourites as well, Lankshear and Stan Mills. From the West Brom point of view, you have to say it was absolutely criminal defending inside the box, how they're not being picked up and how they were both really free to be able to, head the ball home. But we're not sat here complaining, are we? But like you said, the first 5-10 minutes, it just seemed a bit like a West Brom onslaught, and then they just lost all energy, all faith, all guile, all gumption, and it worked completely in our favour, which was very nice.
Will, I want to touch very briefly on the 2 deliveries into the area which resulted in the goals, because we've had a conversation a lot this season on this podcast about the problems with our set piece takers and kind of who's, De Kersbach is great on free kicks, but his corners are shocking. Goodrum is good on corners, his free kicks are awful, and then it reverts back to Mr. Reliable Cameron Brannigan, who I think it's fair to say has got like a 60-40 ratio on whether his deliveries are good or bad. Jamie Donnelly put the ball in for Mills's header, and it was a really, really good whipped cross from Jamie Donnelly. And I thought overall he quite impressed on Saturday.
Oh, yeah, I think he did really well on Saturday. I think his ball in, maybe a bit controversial. I mean, I thought it was a good ball, but I didn't think it was brilliant. I just think the main thing that struck me from that goal was, like you said, the diabolical defending. I think any defender worth his salt would be able to keep that out of the back of the net. But, I mean, we've had problems with deliveries into the box, so it's nice that our attacking players can get a bit of service now. I think also that ball in for the free kick, I don't know, I can't remember who swung it in for that one, but I think that was a really, really fantastic ball in for Lankshear to get on the end of it. And I think also to talk about the start of the game, I feel like you could sort of tell that West Brom players came out with a point to prove after their manager's been sacked. They almost want to prove, why they're worthy of their place in the squad, why they're worthy of whoever is going to come in, why they're worthy of being picked. But you can definitely tell that they're lacking any direction, any sort of cohesion whatsoever, because yes, they were coming at us, but they didn't have any plan going forward. So although we were a bit under the caution, it was a bit like, oh, what's going on here? And you never really felt threatened by it. You never really felt like they're going to score 2 or 3 here. You just thought they're coming at us, but they don't really know what they're doing. And once they ran out of steam, I think that was when we took advantage of it. I'll just say one more point about the delivery and the balls in. It's nice, like we didn't create many opportunities in this game, but finally this season, the opportunities that we did create, we actually took them both. If this happened any other time this season, I promise you we would have had those 2 brilliant opportunities and we wouldn't have scored any of them. So it's nice that the few opportunities we created with 2 decent balls in, we actually took them, which is, I think, is for me the big difference from this game compared to other games previously.
100%. So, Connor, that second ball was a Brannigan free kick. Again, it's Cam's got a very odd technique, which I think is why his set piece deliveries can be so mixed. But it's a like Will said, a good ball in. I think some questions over the West Brom defence and the West Brom keeper. I think maybe he could do better to keep out Lankshear's effort. But that kind of effort, after what we had on Wednesday night, Lankshear wasn't going to pass it up, and you could see he almost made sure to smash it in the back of the net after it crossed the line, just to make sure that it was in fact a goal.
Yeah, and that's props to the boy, because after his effort struck the bar on Wednesday night, beautiful technique for him to swivel and turn around. But after him hitting the bar from close range on Wednesday night, he could have easily just folded and moped about the pitch. But that's just something that he doesn't do, and it's an absolute testament, to his attitude playing for the football club, which he doesn't owe anything to, really. But he could have gone in and said, I missed the big Premier League. And he's, he delivers every single, or he puts in he leaves every single ounce of himself on the pitch in a yellow shirt every single game that he plays in. So I think that most every fan is always happy when he smashes the ball across the back of the net, even if it's already a yard over the line.
There is something I wanted to very quickly mention about Lankshear, which I found super interesting, is that in his post-match interview with Nathan Cooper of Radio Oxford, he mentioned about loyalty and wanting to be loyal to the football club that, as obviously in the first half of the campaign, he had a handful of goals, was getting a fair number of minutes, and from what I understand, that was more than Spurs expected and more than he expected. So he felt a sense of responsibility, degree of loyalty to stick with the football club, even when, we've talked about a couple of times, there was reported interest from sides much higher in the division for his loan to be cancelled and then be sent back out there. Every game this lad plays, in every interview I hear from him, I get further down the rabbit hole of falling in love with another loan player, and especially when he's tapping the badge and stuff after putting the ball in the back of the net. Will,
I was going to say, I don't really want to talk about him, so I don't want to fall in love with him too much. Because when you leave, or if he does leave, it'll make it all the more painful because you never fall in love with a loan player, and it doesn't help when they start saying all the right things you want to hear, when they start kissing the badge after they score, when they show that much passion, when they talking about loyalty to the football club. But I think in the short time that he's been here, he has shown tremendous loyalty to the football club. Like Connor said, with the amount of effort that he puts into his games, like the passion that he shows, every tackle that he wins, every header that he wins, every goal that he scores, like you can really tell it means something for him to actually score a goal for Oxford United. You watch it and you almost feel as though it isn't just a stepping stone for his career. He does actually care somewhat about this football club and where we end up, which will make it all the more crap when if he leaves in the summer. I think he almost feels to me like if he had a choice, he would choose to stay at Oxford. But whether that's what the higher ups at Tottenham have in mind for him, you just don't know. Maybe if we stay in this league, he will. But you never know. Tottenham might be joining us in this league, so who knows? But anyway, he's a brilliant player, and I try not to fall in love with him too much because I really don't want to be in tears when I hear that he's gone off elsewhere when he's gone off on another loan. But yeah, no, he's a brilliant player. He's everything that you want as a fan. Like he really sets himself up to be a fan favorite just with the passion that he shows.
And I think we talked about it briefly last week, Connor, that I think regardless of which division Spurs are in, I think that we're bound to see a bit of an exile of a mass exodus of players, I should say, from the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I think Will Lankshear will be in the league squad, whichever division Spurs find themselves in next campaign. Obviously, we did concede with West Brom's real only major effort of the game. Young Bostock takes aim from, I think it's about 25 yards out, and Brannigan flicks his ankle up to try and send it away and actually puts it past Jamie Cumming. And from that point, the end of that first half, that we were really up against it. You could feel that the momentum had switched, and Connor, I was very, very nervous that we might be about to see a 2-0 lead crumble to 2-2 in the space of the first half.
For the rest of the game, Sam, my heart was in my bum. Everyone around me could just see a second goal coming at some point or another. It's almost like we went when we went 2-0 up. There was almost like batten down the hatches. Let's try and stay in the game for a 2-0 win. It is funny actually because when Mikey Johnson went off and then Ollie Bostock came on, he was the only West Brom player that I thought that showed even an ounce or a bit of grit of wanting to play for West Brom and wear their shirt. And it was, he took a shot and it was just a very, very unfortunate deflection of Brannigan making himself wider and sticking his leg out. Otherwise, I think that shot either would have gone wide or Cumming would have safely had it. But to allude to your earlier point, that's just the state of mind that this club has put us in over the past 7 months or so, expecting a second goal or expecting an equaliser to come when you're 2-0 up.
100%. So, for the rest of the 90, it was a very interesting game, I think, in that second half, because West Brom again started it very strong, looking to get that equaliser. I think Bielik has he has a header that goes just wide. And I don't know if it's like you mentioned, kind of the expectation of the ball, a second West Brom goal hitting the back of the net, but there was a fair number of relatively routine saves that Jamie Cumming made that I was, like you say, I was stood there with my hands on my head or over my eyes thinking, oh God, this is where it all starts to fall apart. Well, we did have a decent opportunity to go 3-1 up, and it's a really good bit of play on the edge of the area, and it's one of the first times I've seen in that moment, from that range, Cameron Brannigan be selfless, because he passed it along to Adamo Maku, who puts it right into the hands of the West Brom keeper. And I remember thinking, because it was a bit of a tame shot from Maku, I don't think he was expecting Brannigan to roll the ball across to him. And we're also thinking, Cam never usually does that. He usually gets to that kind of range and whacks it in the back of the net.
Why he didn't just leather it, I will never know. Because he should have done it. Imagine that going to the top corner in front of the East Stand would be brilliant. And you can tell Amaku wasn't expecting it. I'm guessing in training, Cam Brannigan is spending half his time practicing his thunder basters into the top corner. So when he actually rolled the ball along to him, he's like, oh, I don't know what to do here. So it was a bit of a tape shot. And that's a shame. I will say this idea about fear that we're going to concede a second goal. I was more nervous when we went 2-0 up than when I was when we went 1-0 up, because I just thought, losing a 1-0 lead I can expect with Oxford. Losing a 2-0 lead in this type of game is just going to be heartbreaking.
That cliche about the 2-0 lead rattling around in your brain thinking, if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be Oxford.
No,
dangerous scoreline. Scoreline.
And this would be the perfect game for us to just throw away, because it's the type of game we absolutely need to win. And like you talked about that chance West Brom had with the header. Even when I watched it on the highlights back just before this, just to prepare, even then my head was in my hands. I was like, oh gosh, they're going to score. But of course they didn't. So yeah, just expecting it to go in. It was mostly West Brom in the second half. But again, like I said earlier, you could tell they didn't have any sense of direction or any sense of leadership or any sense of what they were doing, because it was almost like 11 players, let's just go forward and see what happens. And it just resulted in routine saves for Jamie Cumming. So, and maybe it's rather telling that the only goal they got was a really weird deflection. I don't know what Cam Brannigan's doing there. But yeah, I think we weren't lucky to come away with this. We weren't lucky to come away with a victory. I think West Brom would have been lucky to come out of this with a point or 3 points, God forbid. And yeah, we sort of gave up a golden opportunity to go 3-1 up. And I think Cameron Brannigan gave up a golden opportunity to sort of, again, cement himself in Oxford United folklore. But anyway, maybe if he's being selfless, is that a good thing? Probably not for me. I prefer to see him just thunder it, even if it flies over the crossbar. I prefer to see him at least have a go.
I will say, I think there's been a couple of instances in this kind of running of games in this relegation fire. I'm getting flashbacks to Cam during that 22-23 campaign, where he's seeing that the rest of the players around him aren't up to snuff, so he's having to do everything himself. But I think Cam sometimes does, because of his, I think he's clocked up over 350 appearances in all comps for the club at this point. I think maybe he sometimes does forget that he's not the only outlet now for this club. We've got I'm not saying we've got even I'd say a championship squad, but we've got some okay players. We've got some players that can be at that level, but the reason they're at our club is they haven't got consistency. Before we roll on to, we want to shed a spotlight on one particular player, because I thought he was really, really, really good. Quick note to the defensive solidity across the board from Long, Hellick. I thought it was a return to form for him. Connor, Kieran Brown, Jack Curry put in a magnificent performance. I thought this was a proper. This is what we expected, when managers come in and say, I want to shore up the defence and make us hard to score against.
Yeah, and that's something that you have to give Matt Bloomfield credit for, and that's what he's done. I mean, the first couple of games he came in, kept clean sheets, and generally across the board, we've been It's been okay, but there's been really some stupid mistakes, whether it be individual mistakes or whether it be tactical mistakes. And this isn't the best squad, so that it comes with the territory and it is expected. But you can tell that we do look a bit more measured and a bit more assured, and that we do have some sort of plan at the back rather than just trying to go sideways and backwards or just lump it completely up the pitch up to nobody. As much as that still does irritate me from time to time, as I'm sure it does with you as well, Sam and Will. There's some little bits of row at ball that are still in there, and you think this isn't what this. We try to get away from this, but he's working. He's working, in a limited capacity with what he has. So, gave him a lot of slack. Gave him a lot of pelters on Wednesday. Already resigning myself to League One, saying that there's going to be more pressure on Matt Bloomfield probably remarkably than there will be on Oxford to have a serious promotion push in League One. But I guess we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
The only thing I'll say on the start of players, like you said, it's not even specific aspects from kind of the team as a whole. It's Jamie Cummings' long distribution. We've talked about it time and time again this season. It's so poor. The amount of times, whether you put it down to we're under the cosh, so wanting to relieve a bit of pressure, I'd say there's at least a 50-50 chance that the ball goes out of play from one of Jamie's goal kicks. I think there's also an instance second half where I think it was one of his his goal kicks, that he sends long and it bounces all the way out for a West Brom goal kick. Well, it's something that, like I said, we've mentioned a fair number of times this campaign. But I'm just like, at what point do we make the decision to have one of the outfield players take the goal kicks?
Like we did in League One, I think I'm right in saying there were a few games where I think it would have been Des Buckingham back then was just getting so fed up that I think he was telling Elliot Moore or whoever, you take the goal kick because this guy's hopeless. He's clearly not going to get it to anyone. I mean, his short distribution is good, but his short distribution is just pass to the defender nearest to you. So that's nothing to shout about. His long distribution isn't great, but let's not forget, he's a fantastic shot stopper. I think if we were higher up in the table, if we were mid-table, if we were even, God forbid, if we were in the upper half of the table, then we could actually seriously have to start to have complaints about this and seriously start to get start to properly be moaning about this. But with where we are right now, all I want is a goalkeeper who can keep the ball out of the back of the net. Jamie Cumming, for the most part, does pretty well at that. So his long distribution is frustrating, but for me, it isn't like something that I'm, lying awake at night seething about. I just want him to keep the ball out of the back of the net. His distribution is frustrating, but for now, he's doing the basics, and with where we are, the basics is all we need.
I'd somewhat disagree on that because I think, I'm not going to deny the fact that he is a phenomenal shot stopper. When he's on form, we've seen more times than we'd like this campaign that he's dropped. I think he's dropped a handful of clangers, but overall he's still a very solid shot stopper. I think the long distribution is an issue at where we are because what it does is give the opposition a chance to, when we're trying to relieve pressure on ourselves, get right back at us. Like you say, I think when it comes to a short distribution, you can say that it's a simple thing, but he's really good when there's a player rushing onto him and he's got to make a quick decision of, does he go to Hellick, does he go to Curry, does he go to Brown? We've seen recently that he's doing that technique that kind of Manuel Neuer made famous, in recent football. When the ball's coming towards him, keeper goes out and makes a challenge on the ball. Either gets it forward to a man on his side or puts out a play, whatever it might be. But the long distribution, I think, and maybe it's just a small pet peeve I've got, but it puts us under unnecessary pressure, I think, late on in games particularly. Connor, have you got any thoughts on this?
Yeah, everybody around me keeps saying about Jamie Cumming and his long distribution, about just how we have no faith or confidence, say, when there's a ball coming in. And there was more than enough times on Saturday where balls are being delivered and we were saying to ourselves, why is he not coming for that? Because it almost looks like that with that long distribution and being able to, to command your area and being able to come in and collect balls. It was almost lower League One, League Two standard goalkeeping. You're thinking we're in serious business now. And as you say, Will, he's a fantastic shot stopper, but without trying to sound like Roy Keane, that's what every goalkeeper should be. They should be shot stoppers. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, we can't change anything. I think that we will have a new man between the sticks at the start of next season, even whatever league that we're in. But, because in League One and last season, I have no idea what's happened, or whether because the defence was so on fire last season that it kind of masked over some of these concerns that we have now about Jamie Cumming.
I was going to say, do you think, is that more down to, you think someone will come and buy him, or that we'll bring in a new number 2 to give him some serious competition?
We'll bring in a new number 1 and he will be number 2.
Oh, okay. We'll wait and see on that. We'll add that to the bingo card for our predictions for next season. We mentioned that we wanted to kind of give a lot of praise to one particular player in that performance, and it is the young Turkish midfielder Yunus Konak, because this lad has had sporadic appearances in Oxford United shirt. This is the longest amount of time he's been on the pitch. I think he played 75 minutes on Saturday. And I thought, obviously, his first appearance, we mentioned that he was very, very eager, charging around on that pitch. Got himself booked, obviously, in that first half. But he looks to have got an idea now of kind of how he plays alongside Brannigan. Alongside that, also, Will, I think there were some moments with the ball at his feet where I thought, I can see why people in the Turkish FA rate this lad so highly, because his close control, his eye for a pass was sensational.
Yeah, we already know, like, he's definitely up for it. He's always coming out the turnstile swinging and charging at players and whatever. But I think that was on Saturday was the first game where, like, we saw, like you said, why he's so highly rated, and we saw some of the potential of the player he could be for Oxford United, which I think is very exciting. I think, like, also his football intelligence is also quite impressive for somebody like for a player like him. I think I've said this a lot when I've talked about not deadbeats, but like sort of first few performances of the season. There weren't no fireworks. He didn't score a bicycle kick, but he did have a very solid performance. And I think the important thing is that he showed the potential of what he could be, either at the tail end of this season or hopefully next season if he stays with us. So I think it was a very solid performance, and I think he showed a lot of, like I said, he showed a lot of what he could be as a player, and he showed why he's very highly rated.
Yeah. And also, I think another important thing for him, Connor, was he kept a cool head. I don't think he got booked, which is kind of very important, because you can become a bit of a liability if you get booked so many times in a short span, and that leads to opposition midfielders, opposition attackers targeting you because they know that you'll react and possibly put your side at a disadvantage. But I thought overall, the way he conducts himself, like I mentioned, his close control, eye for pass, all that kind of stuff, I thought Yunus Konak was very, very good yesterday.
Yeah, especially as a young player as well. When he had his debut and he started, he came out like a bull in a china shop. So whether Bloomfield's had a word or he's just eased his anxiety, and he's slotting well into the slot. Konak for me yesterday was my man of the match. I thought that he went about his business brilliantly, probably because he wasn't really so I'm looking for, probably wasn't really recognised that much, in that, like, you didn't really notice that he was there. I know we had that conversation about midfielders in that role last week, Sam. I thought that he was absolutely terrific. I think that unfortunately after Will Volks's display on midweek. I think that a lot of fans were asking for Konak to start and didn't really understand why he wasn't starting midweek. Maybe it was because he was waiting to be started today, but those are very, very encouraging signs. I'd have no qualms if he started at Preston on Friday.
That was going to be my question in terms of, we're not sure if Jamie McDonnell is going to be available. We understand that it's not as serious an injury as Thursford, but I think that if we always caveat these conversations with if Konak continues this run like he had yesterday, I think Jamie McDonnell's going to find it very difficult to get back into that alongside Cameron Brannigan, because, like we said, this lad is. I think you're right. Where I think a bit of the anxiety of first. I think it was his first loan move in English football, if I remember rightly, when he joined us, and that kind of there's always going to be a little bit of that, but like I say, I think he's kind of settled into things, and if McDonnell might find it quite difficult to get back in this 11.
Yeah, which is a brilliant problem for us to have as Oxford fans, and a brilliant problem for Bloomfield to have as a manager. Oh no, which good player do I choose? When McDonnell got injured, I think we were all sort of, again, it was sort of like head in hands, like typical Oxford, typical this season almost. We signed what looks like a really good player, and now he's out, and now we have to replace him and just hope that whoever is going to come into his position and play in his role can live up to the task. And clearly Konak can do that. So I think first of all, for those two players themselves to be fighting each other for that position will only push each other further forward and push each other on to having better performances, which I think is a good thing. And I think it's also just good, almost just for the squad depth and for security, to know that if one can't play, we can get the other in, and he can do just as good a job, or an even better job potentially. So I think it's nothing but good news for the football club and for fans, because like I said, when McDonnell got injured, I think we were all like, here we go, got a good player, and now he's gone. But now we know there's somebody who's worth his soul who can replace him.
And also, thankfully, it appears to have dispelled the chatter that was going on after Konak didn't really feature. Or it looks like Bloomfield doesn't really like Konak. We know that Konak was going to be signed regardless of who the manager was, but it's good to see that hopefully appears to have been just speculation. Before, of course, we get into the Preston preview, please remember, folks, to like, comment and subscribe. Massively helps out in the algorithm, of course. Drop us your thoughts on the win against West Brom in the comments. Of course, follow us all on Twitter. Of course, you can see our handles on screen. We also need to very quickly mention that the club signed the Section 106 agreement relating to traffic stuff for the new ground. So hopefully we can finally start getting that damn thing built, because we're into March now, and we were told by Grant Ferguson that we'd start like mid-January is when there'd be spades in the ground, and we are rapidly running out of time to get this thing built before we need to be out of the Castad. So let's talk about Friday night. We are, for some reason, the featured game has been chosen as Oxford United's visit to Deepdale. I'm sure every neutral is absolutely buzzing to watch that game. So our situation is we are now 2 points behind Leicester with still a worse goal difference, 3 behind West Brom with a better goal difference than them. So this could be a very, very big one if we can get 3 points, then put massive pressure on West Brom and Leicester for the Saturday games. Connor, as the EFL expert around these parts, talk to us about Preston's season, because they started like a bit of a house on fire. Kind of, they were almost were on a mission to throw away the perennial perception of them just being the mid-table championship side. We know that they've got a nutcase up top who I think he's missed like 20 games since pulling on a Preston shirt, and his absences have kind of coincided with the dip in form that Preston have had, haven't they? They're 2 losses and 2 draws. in their last 5 matches, and that hope of playoffs is faded away a bit.
Yeah, you summed that up perfectly. Because at the start of the season, nobody expected them to be where they were. They were up and around, like securing themselves in the in the playoff spots, and they looked like that they had a shot. But as you say, since Osmajic, he's been out. This is his 3rd stint, I think. He's been suspended for a heavy period of time while he's been in a Preston shirt, and he is that. He is that. How can I put this politely? He's a brick shit. He's a shit house, actually, is what he is. I think that it's because of his attitude, and he has that like pure like Balkan spirit, like that pure Balkan Montenegro spirit of no one's getting in my way, and there's only one objective that I see. But as you say, he is suspended for being an absolute nut job. How he's still employed by Preston North End, I have no idea. But with Preston, they've only won this entire season since January. So they won the first 2 games at the turn of the year on the New Year's Day, and then the 4th. And then the only other game that they've won this season has been against Portsmouth at home, which I thought that they were lucky to come through. And they seem to have just a weak mentality when it goes into the latter stages of games. Very recently, they've been conceding, past 90 minutes. And even Paul Heckingbottom, he's just getting sick and tired of it and fed up that that the mentality isn't there, that the concentration isn't there. And then when you're looking at how they play, if you're going to ask me about standout players, really they're coming either from midfield or attacking areas. Main man in midfield, Ben Whiteman, he's always been Mr. Reliable and centre of midfield. He's one that's going to look to unlock passes. Their big signing in the summer, Callum Lang, he's already got 2 goals and 2 assists, which was I thought that was quite a good pickup from Portsmouth. I'm quite surprised actually that Portsmouth let him go. He's currently the Heckingbottom's deploying him in the 10 role and up front for the 2 strikers that they usually play. They usually play like a 4-3-1-2 system, because at the moment both Daniel Jebison and Lewis Dobbin, they haven't really been finding the heights that they were finding at the start of the season in the first half of the campaign. So I think, gents, this is a real opportunity to actually get ourselves out of the relegation zone for the first time in months. And I know that in front of the Sky cameras, it's usually a bit of a task. And being up at Preston on Friday night, but again, we got to be going into these next few games, look at them, thinking against a Preston side that are not at the races whatsoever. They're finding it difficult to hold on to leads and to have that mentality to get through. So this is another one we should be looking at, thinking that if we get 3 points, this really is a season defining game.
Will, I'll come to you on thoughts of the Preston game in just a minute. There's a kind of a little tangent I wanted to ask you both about which of these two, because obviously Osmajic was for the first half of the campaign, I think he was top goal scorer, and there's always interest in him. I think there was some from Italy in the summer window. Out of the kind of, if you look at the top scorers across the first half of the season, second half of the season, who do we reckon is the better striker? For Potnik at Swansea or Osmajic, because they're both Balkan nut jobs, so they're both big guys. So who do you reckon is the better striker?
If you're asking who I'd rather have Potnik.
Yeah. But Potnik's not going to get himself banned for alleged racism and headbutting somebody. But go on, Will.
Who do I rather have preferred striker? Mark Harris. I'm sticking with him. He may not be Balkan, but he is from Wales. So there you go. I don't know. Why not him? Why not Will Lankshear? Why not any of these players? Anyone who can score a goal for Oxford, anyone who can score a goal in general, I'll take them. I don't know. When it comes to Balkan nut jobs, we could probably do with one of them. But anyway, we got enough nut jobs in our squad. We got Cameron Brannigan, who would just floor anyone he could if he had an opportunity to. So I don't think we really need them, whether they're from the Balkans or not.
We do. We have Yunus Konak.
Yeah. That's probably not the answer you're looking for, Sam.
Maybe Prelic will become our big nut job striker if he can get a run on the side. But Will, putting the jokes about about a striker aside, we got 2 draws against a win and a draw against Preston last season. They has kind of ran us down. They're a better side this year than I think they were last year. How are you looking at this game going into it? Because that prospect of, like we said, getting out of the relegation zone for the first time in a number of months is hanging there, as that is the prize to be got at, and put pressure on Blackburn, on Leicester, on West Brom.
I don't know. I think because it's such a big game, because it's almost like a 6-pointer, because the ball is in our court and we can actually lift ourselves out of the relegation zone, even if it's just temporarily, which would be a huge morale boost. I think because of all that pressure being on us, that's why I'm so nervous about this game. I am quite confident going into games against Coventry, against Middlesbrough. When we played, Leicester, obviously they weren't as good when we played them and when we beat them. Because I think we're going into those games as the underdog, as no one's going to expect anything. We're little old Oxford. Let's go give it a good run out and see what we can get from it. But this game, because the pressure is really on, not because of the cameras. I mean, we always lose on Sky anyway, but because of just the opportunity to get out of the relegation zone and to really put the pressure on West Brom, Blackburn, Leicester. Because of that, that's why I'm feeling quite nervous for this game. Logically, like Connor said, Preston on a bit of a slump right now. They were pretty lucky to beat Portsmouth, and they seem to just not really be able to pick up results recently. Could they be looking at Oxford as the team to get them out of that slump? Yes, but I think they could also be looking at Oxford as the team that's going to really go at it for this one. We need a win here. Anything other than we need a win, we need points here. This is a great opportunity for us. I think I'm feeling nervous. Maybe logically I should be feeling optimistic, but I don't know. I got pits in my stomach when it comes to this one. I don't know how it's going to come out because the pressure is on, because we're not the underdog, because we should win this, because we have to win this. That's why I feel so nervous, and I don't feel too confident about it.
This is such a massive opportunity. I don't think we've had a bigger opportunity all season, and I'm sure the players realise it, and that's kind of what scares me, if they're going to go and, quite frankly, shit the bed. But
to be fair, you could say the same against West Brom. West Brom was a huge opportunity. West Brom was like, if we lose this, we're going down, and they came out and performed for that one. So it could be the same. Yeah. I'm not sure.
It's just the fact that if we lose this, and then we lose this, and then West Brom, they miraculously pick up 3 points, and then we're just back to square one again.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
It's a win or nothing.
It's a well-worn phrase, but we've got 11 cup finals coming up. I was looking at the fixtures yesterday after the West Brom game. There are some very winnable games. Some games that kind of we have to target as this has to be 3 points. I think, to be perfectly honest, every game, we've got to be looking at and going, this is a very reductive argument, because, this is the thing you say about every game of football. That's, how football works. But we pretty much need to look at every as if you don't win, draw. You cannot afford to, performances cannot allow you to lose a single game, because that would allow an opportunity for the sides around us to pick up points and push us, like I said, kind of back to square one. On the flip side, I think Preston fans would, the phrase they would use to describe this game is a potential banana skin. So we will wait and see for that game at Deepdale Under the Light. Thank you so much, folks, for watching this week's episode of Walking the London Road. As we mentioned a little bit ago, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. It massively helps us out in the algorithm. Share it to a couple of your fellow Oxford United fans, and follow us all on Twitter at the handles you can see. And we'll be back next week, of course, for a review of the Preston game, where hopefully that gap to getting out of the relegation zone is a bit different. We'll see you later.